Hello and welcome back to the Animal Wisdom World Summit. This is the place for animal lovers and spiritual seekers to connect with the wisdom of all kinds of animals, from family pets to wild animals to animal spirit guides. I'm your host, Dr. Kara Gubbins, founder of the Animal Wisdom Circle, and How to Talk to Your Pet, the proven 4-step system that teaches everyone to talk to their pet intuitively or to any animal. And today we have Dr. Stephen Farmer with us, and we're going to talk about animal spirit guides and power animals. Dr. Stephen Farmer is a world-renowned author, teacher, shamanic practitioner, and licensed psychotherapist, which is a lot of S's for me to say. Sorry about that. For more information about private sessions, special events, and workshops, please visit his website at earthmagic.net. Welcome, Stephen.
Well, thank you, Kara. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Thanks. I'm really excited to have you here.
There we go. Yeah, the topic is one that's near and dear to my heart, spirit animals, animal spirit guides. So I look forward to just adding to the series in a little different slant on animals and I won't say animal communication, but spirit animal communication, and how people can benefit from a relationship with their spirit animal or spirit animals in general. And yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. It's just amazing. People just love it. Once they kind of glom onto it and get a good idea of what it's about, it's fascinating how things open up, you know, the possibilities open up for hearing from spirit in a very specific way.
So when you say animal spirit guides, power animals, totem animals, all those are words that I don't know if everybody gets, and are there different definitions?
Yeah, my take on it, Kara, is, and I think a good one is animal spirit guides is sort of the umbrella. And I use that term interchangeably with spirit animals. The term animal spirit guides does imply something a little bit more, which is that they are guides. And that these animals can, through their physical presence or their symbolic presence, also can deliver a message from spirit in a very specific way, depending on the particular animal. Terms that other people that are listening might have come across are, like you say, totem animals, power animals, and I'll illuminate that too. Illuminate, I like that word. I will clarify that. Animal spirit guides, and again, I use that interchangeably with spirit animals, but animal spirit guides is any animal, I mean any animal of all the thousands of species on the planet that comes to you to deliver a message or some guidance in some way. And that's all the way from cockroaches all the way to eagles, bears, lions, etc. So that's an animal spirit guide. Any animal that shows up to you in an unusual way and or repeatedly in a short space of time, I qualify that as an animal spirit guide. Totem animals, and I'll get back to animal spirit guide because that's a little more specific to what I want to convey here. Totem animals, there's different takes on what totem animals are, depending on who you speak with, what culture, etc. But certainly animal spirit guides are in almost any indigenous culture, definitely in indigenous cultures. And even in contemporary times, it's beginning to penetrate the consciousness more and more so to understand this. Totem animals, there's a couple of different definitions for totem animals. One is, it's a representation, a physical representation, typically, of a spirit animal that may have come to you or that you work with or that is a consistent force in your life. For instance, I have over on my altar here, I see over there, it looks like a snake on your, is that what I'm...
Dolphins. I have...
Oh, it's dolphins, okay.
Over there that are wood, and I have...
Those are totems.
Marble dolphins. So these would be totems.
Yeah, that's one definition of totems. Is again that represents a spirit animal that's a favorite of yours in some way. And so I suspect, yes, dolphins are very significant for you in your work, as well as other people can find other types of animals that come to them in that way and have that representation nearby. Yeah, I've got, here's one. I'm sitting here. I got him definitely. This is a tortoise. And I'm going to hold it up here a little bit. Beautiful tortoise that was gifted to me by a friend in Australia after a workshop. She wasn't sure what to do with it, I think. So I love it. It's inlaid with some very, very beautiful stones. And tortoise is one of the animals, or spirit animals more accurately, that I work with. The second meaning of totem typically is a spirit animal that's shared by a group or a clan or a community or a family. Think totem poles. My research on totem poles, there really isn't anything like this is what they are exactly, but the best meaning that I came across is typically in a tribe, there are not only, it's not only a community, but there are different clans within that tribe. And so the totem pole is a representation of the different spirit animals that are shared by those particular clans. For instance, we have sort of an echo of those with our sports teams, for instance. You know, speaking of Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles, etc., who won the Super Bowl last year. But they don't have that, I don't think they have that sort of depth of meaning typically, but that's another representation of a totem animal. Power animals is one of my books is called Power Animals, and I've got a deck of message cards or oracle cards called Power Animal Oracle Cards. And when I first started writing in this genre of shamanism, I became very intrigued by the whole animal spirit guides, power animals. When I trained in my initial training in shamanism and shamanic work, the training involved a certain kind of spirit animal that you'd sort of adopt, or they would adopt you, or it was a mutual agreement, and that's called a power animal. And so in shamanic work, typically the shaman or the shamanic practitioner will have 1, 2, or 3 particular spirit animals that he or she works with, and those are his, I'm going to use his instead of that clumsy his, her. That's his power animals that will give him advice, will guide him on these shamanic journeys, etc. And that's a power animal. After having published this book and doing my own work with this and understanding it to a greater degree, I came to the conclusion everybody's born with a power animal, sort of like a guardian angel, but in animal form. However, here's the qualification: because we haven't had support in the broader culture, the Western culture particularly, as well as some Eastern cultures and others, that we haven't had support, you know, parents, nobody's fault or anything, but just we haven't had that in our collective consciousness about power animals. So even though you're born with one, often what happens is they leave. And nobody's fault. It's not, you know, it's not the individual's fault. We're not here to blame anybody or anything. It's just that there's no relationship that's developed. So when you I don't know whether to say when you acquire a power animal or they acquire you, it's important to honor that relationship and to develop it over time. It's like a friend, you know, if you don't contact a friend after about 7, 8 years, which is typically at 7, 8 years of age, when the power animal leaves, doesn't go, good news. If you don't contact a friend regularly, then, you know, they're going to stop calling you back or trying to reach you. That's just the way, it's very similar in that way. The good news is that you can retrieve that same power animal through a shamanic process called power animal retrieval. The other truth about power animals is they can change over time. A good example, a simple example for me is for my many years having a psychotherapy practice and then bringing in shamanism, not into the practice necessarily, but just for my own understanding and training, etc. Owl spirit was a strong ally and power animal. Owl served a very good purpose for me as a therapist, which is one of the medicines or the gifts of owl is to see into the darkness. And as a metaphor for working with clients in a psychotherapy practice, great medicine. So owl was a very valuable ally. And then I shifted out of an active practice, started writing more along. I had some books I published as a therapist, one of which I've just recently reissued as a 25th anniversary edition, my very first book. But I shifted. I didn't write for a while or publish. And then when I started writing in areas that were related to shamanism, but that I think people could digest, like animal spirit guides, without necessarily being interested in shamanism. So after I went further into shamanic work and writing, etc., owl sort of got kicked out of the nest and raven came in. And that was about 8 years ago. So that's an example of how they can change, because raven's medicine is much more appropriate for the work I'm doing. And a general kind of assessment of raven's powers or gifts or medicine is the ability to manifest. There's a lot of magic when you work with raven. There's a creation story that said raven was the creator bird that brought from the darkness into the light, into the physical reality. So that's the difference. Animal spirit guides, as I said, it's the trick is then how do you understand the message? You know, and there's a couple of ways, if I can go ahead with that and explain that. One is, what I always encourage people as a practice is, again, when an animal shows up in a unusual way and or repeatedly, I always say, sit down, take a few breaths, close your eyes, and telepathically ask the spirit animal what the message is. And then you will receive it. And it might be in your mind's eye. You might be prompted to open your eyes and look around you and be drawn to a certain aspect of the environment. You might hear in your inner voice, which is largely what I do, is I hear those messages. I'm a wordsmith and a writer, so it makes sense, you know, that I work with words, so it makes sense I would hear it. Or something in the environment you might hear that's related specifically to your inquiry. There's two ways: visual, auditory, then kinesthetically, which means you get a sensation in your body, you get a movement, or you get chills. You know, I call it my fur. My fur stands up. Something is going on that is in response to my inquiry. That's one way, is ask. That's sometimes a little tricky to do. Second way, though, is consider or research the characteristics of the animal. I'll give you an example. Would be one that comes to me every so often is in the garage is crickets. And cricket isn't a power animal. In fact, some traditions say no insect can be power animal and no domestic animals can be power animals. So cricket is an animal spirit guide, though. Roaches are, cockroaches. Every so often I'll hear in the garage, you know, the chirping of the cricket, the singing, the song. And immediately I hear, go play your guitar and sing. You know, because of the music. You see the metaphor? So that's one thing. And that's another way. A second way to interpret the message is, what are the characteristics? What's the characteristics of, let's say, bear, for instance? You know, you don't necessarily see a physical bear, but you might wake up with a big dream about bear. That's why I say symbolism of the animal, too. You go, what was that? Well, let me think what Stephen said, you know, about the bear. Characteristics. Well, one thing is, do they hibernate? The mama bear hibernates. And then 9 months later, she has given birth. So there may be a gestation period for a project that you're working on. It might be that you are literally, as a woman, you may be pregnant, so it's possible. It's also, bears are not necessarily aggressive, but mama bear, you mess with her cubs. So do with mama bear. You know, it may be that you need to be more assertive, you know, with your boundaries, for instance. But I think you get the idea. The third way, let's see, the first way was you ask. The second way is the characteristics. And the third way is to search the internet. There's books out, including mine. There's other books as well as mine. Just do a search for, what is bear spirit? What's lion spirit? What's eagle spirit? And out of that, you'll get some ideas. And again, it's got to resonate with you. I like that term resonance, in some way. In my book, Animal Spirit Guides, and also the condensation of that book, Pocket Guide, there's anywhere from 5 to 7 different possible messages you can look up. And it's not necessarily that all 6 or 7 are relevant to you, but usually what people find is that 1 or 2 will pop out, like in glowing neon signs as to what the significance, and there's a feeling often in the body of what I call resonance. So that's a lot of information, I realize, but I trust that's an overview of those animal spirit guides, spirit animals, totem animals, and power animals, Kara.
And you even answered my next question, which was going to be like, how do we actually, use those to make our lives better, which you already kind of outlined for us.
Yeah, the spirit, frankly, spirit comes to us in a number of ways. What I find with animal spirit guides is it's just very accessible. I've had so many experiences with that. I had a hawk, a juvenile hawk, fly into my office one time from the front of the house when I had a house and I was in the back, and goes flying by, hits the window, stunned. It was fine, happy ending, the hawk was fine, but he was stunned. And I'm sitting there because when I'm working on one of my, actually one of my Oracle decks in Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides. I thought I was supposed to be working on it, I should say, but I was goofing off. I was playing some computer game like backgammon or something like that. And out of that flutter I saw, and immediately I kind of said, actually I said it out loud. I said, well, Mr. Animal Spirit Guide guy, what's this? And what came to me right away, and is quite often one of the messages from Hawk spirit, actually, not the animal, but the spirit animal. I tell people, I'm not an animal expert. You are an animal communicator. I'm a spirit animal communicator. It's a little different take on a very similar topic. And immediately when I asked, again, I heard focus,
Yeah.
Implying, quit goofing off, you got to get this project done. And I did. So that's for instance. The crickets, another example, reminder to sing, and it balances me, to have my music. I'm not a professional musician. I am a wannabe rock and roll star, but I've given up that dream, about 30 years ago. So,
aren't we all, though?
Gosh, yeah, the glory, if only, but that was not my path, as much as I thought it would be at one point. But very clear, you have to have a much more talent than I have. So, so this is what I'm supposed to be doing, definitely. But anyway, you get the point, is that spirits in all things. We forget that we're very forgetful species, Homo sapiens, human beings. And what I love about this era right now is I think we're waking up. Waking up to certain realities that our long ago ancestors would, if we told them, hey, look what I found out about animal spirit guides, would go, so what's new?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? Of course, the world is alive. I remember Bruno Bettelheim wrote a book years ago. I never read the book. I wish I had, but I just always remember the title, The Re-Enchantment of the World. The Re-Enchantment of the World. This gives my heart great joy as I say this, because the world is so alive and we are so connected to the world. And these are some of the ways, with animal spirit guides, that we can reconnect with a deeper aspect, a more profound aspect of the world.
And when you started working with animal guides or animal spirit guides, I'm noticing that you get words really quickly right now. So you asked that hawk and you heard focus. But was it that way from the very beginning, or did you have to work at it?
Oh. No, it wasn't. I think, frankly, Kara, I think that's part of why I wanted to produce something that would help me further understand it, and also as a service too. So there's something being power animals, power animal oracle cards, animal spirit guides, a very useful book, a condensation of that, pocket guide. So, and then another deck, messages from animal spirit guides. Anyway, this whole plethora, if you will, about five, I forget, 4 or 5 different, I hesitate to call them products, but products that are out in the world now. And as I did, I think I learned to become more adept. It's, I think, like a muscle, you know, the more you practice it, the more you stay alert and present to those kind of visitations, whether in your dreams or symbolism or the actual animal shows up, the better you get at it. Excuse me. Frankly, there's times when an animal will appear, and immediately I'll run to my book, you know, and go, you know, instead of doing these other things like, oh yeah, you know, communicate with the spirit animal. Yes, I still do that too, but sometimes I guess maybe out of laziness or efficiency, and I like that better than laziness. Out of efficiency, I'll go to the pocket guide and go, oh my goodness, who wrote that? Oh yeah, I did. Well, I had a lot of help writing these things too. I really did. I did both left brain research as well as right brain research to discern what the possible medicine or messages are from these animals. So yeah, just if you're just starting out, it's okay. Go to a book, you know, go to the internet. But I also encourage people to practice that direct communication and then receive it, whatever, maybe you're more visual, maybe you're more auditory or kinesthetic, you know, trust that as primary. Not everybody's highly visual. I learned that a long time ago. You know, I'm more auditory kinesthetic, and visual has come along much more strongly in the last several years. But though I still lean on, you know, what did you say? You know, listening.
And were you an animal lover from the very early days as a kid? I mean, it seems like you've really gone from this personal growth into animals with personal growth.
Well, yeah, especially now I've settled. I've got a great family. My wife, Jessica, as you've been communicating with, her daughters, my stepdaughters, Serena and Ari. We have a dog, Samson, who's around here somewhere, a big old yellow lab. We have 2 kitties. We have 2 rabbits and 2 tortoises that we basically, they came to us. You know, we didn't go and go, let's get some tortoises. You know, they came to us. And every one of these animals are great teachers. And again, you're the expert there, you know, but I do a fair job. For instance, when Samson, the dog, hangs around his food bowl, I think he's trying to tell me something. And he's a lab, so he's always hanging around his food bowl. And what can I say, you know? It doesn't take a lot of, you know, discernment to interpret that. But in answer to your question, yes, I've always loved animals. I've had my heart broken too, you know, when I've had to put an animal down, a dog particularly. It took me many years to, not to create a sob story, but I had a dog that I just loved, and I had to put him down when he was about 3.5. He got a serious illness, and there was no, you know, he would have died suffering, and you know how it is, you know, as many of your listeners do. So it took me a long time, and we got Samson. He's about 4 years old now, and Jessica she'd chide me because I go, God, is he okay? I hope he's okay. You know, I just be so neurotic about, you know, oh my God, is he going to die? No, I don't want to think that. Okay, he's fine. And she'd just go, come on, Stephen, stop, knock it off. Oh, okay, I'll knock it off. So yes, I have been an animal lover all along.
And do you think young Stephen would be surprised at where Dr. Stephen Farmer is now?
Oh my God, yeah. I was disillusioned with God or spirit, but I'll call him God, when I was about 7 years old. I prayed and prayed for this little girl that was sick next door, and she and I used to play about the same age, and she ended up dying. And I made a decision. You know, it's how funny how childhood decisions can affect us. There's no God. 7 years old, you know, and that was the guy in the sky kind of God at that time. Most children have it. They have to, you know, physicalize the concept. And it took a while before I realized there was a God, and I wrote one story. It's on the website too, of watching my daughter.
Okay, sorry about that technical difficulty, but we're back, and you were just telling us that you had been disillusioned with that standard God thing. And then what happened after that?
Well, it just was many years, and my parents would, they didn't really push religion on me, but we would go to this church or that church over the years. But I was always very suspicious. Let's call it. I don't even know if I had a label for it. I don't think I was atheist or agnostic. I just didn't. I went, come on. And it was the birth of my daughter, my oldest daughter, that really brought me back online, so to speak. And I just remember witnessing it. It was 6-hour labor, really fast. We were blown out. It was New Year's Eve when the water broke. So I have a January 1st birthday. And I just remember sitting down exhausted and just wide-eyed in awe. And I just kept saying very quietly to myself, there is a God. Brings tears.
Yeah.
There is a God. I didn't know what that meant exactly at that point, but it really kind of, pushed me back in, because to me, that was a miracle. Wow. I've heard the stories, but that was a miracle. So that got me back on. And then, as often happens, I think it was suffering that really caused me to really pursue more and more about spirituality and such. And the suffering was the result of a divorce, when the children were quite young. And I would go to church religious science. I did that for 4 years, and then something else for 4 years, and then something else. Just sampling and really beginning to kind of perceive the spiritual realities that are with us. And you asked me if, when I was young, if I would have seen no, I had no ambition. I think I'm pretty good at following leads, and have been for several years now. Pardon me. Little froggy, speaking of animals, little frog in my throat. And now it's like, it's just a given. And I continue to explore more and more in depth about spirituality and shamanism, and what that means, and the relationship between psychotherapy and shamanism. And I'm grateful. I'm looking at the 3 words. I come up with words for the year, and these are the 3 words: focus, presence, and gratitude. And if I were to add a 4th, it would be love. But focus, presence, gratitude. And it's right here. I'm looking over here because I've got it posted here as a reminder. Be present. Be grateful. And I am. I'm truly grateful. I've had a really good life, and I've had suffering. Part of the deal. It's just part of the deal.
I like the quote, I'm not sure who it was, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, because suffering is what we do inside our heads.
Yeah.
And I feel like the tools that you have relieve people from suffering.
Yeah. And there's this standing joke about first world problems too, like we suffer through them. Oh my God, the internet is not working today. Oh my goodness, I've got a hangnail. And like there really is suffering in the world.
Yes.
I like the quote. Don't get me wrong, I like that. And yes, we can indulge in this kind of almost pseudo suffering, at times. But I've been on the floor bawling my eyes out at times. Just to let it go, release it, feel the grief, feel the pain. That's better than hanging out and suffering and being a martyr about it. It's better in my
a lot longer.
Yeah. You can hang out for a long time in martyrdom. But if you just genuinely, if you're going to suffer, go for it. And it took a while for me to learn that lesson. But, and then get up and go ahead, go fix dinner.
Well, and because once you surrender to it, it moves. And then you're done and you're like, hey, I'm hungry. Now I can go fix dinner.
Right. If I may, I don't know if we have time, but I have a very favorite story. about what you just said. Supposedly, and I heard this third hand, so I'm not sure how to attribute this, but in the days where the Lakota people were moving around, quite often when they would settle in an encampment, the men would go to the chief's teepee, and they would then swap stories about spirit and the buffalo hunt and how spirit worked and their own experiences, etc. And they'd share these, do talk story about these, while the chief would just sit there, being a chief, wouldn't say a word. And then at some point he'd stand up, when he'd camp his staff, and he would say the Lakota word, washto, washto. And washto means it moves.
Wow.
What else can you say about spirit? It sums it up. And then the men would all go and then head back to their teepees and not say another word. Isn't that a great story?
I love it.
Washto.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's, as I said, that's one of my favorite stories, because it really is about movement, always. Get so locked into time and structure and such like that. I had a meditation I did, and the teacher that came in reminded me and said, listen, don't get caught up in the clock. Every time you start getting in a hurry or ahead of yourself, just say that word out loud, clock. Oh, yeah. It was a reminder that it's not about the clock. That's not what time is.
Yeah.
Our version of time, although again useful in today's world in many ways, it's kind of screwed up.
Yeah, not useful for the pressure that it creates around it.
Instead of, I tried to say this is a trite saying, but going with the flow, I don't know that we can do that, but we can have moments of it. We can have moments of being out in the forest, in the woods, and just have that feeling of selflessness. There's no identity, that we are so connected to what's around us, whatever's going on. Forest is nice, but it could be anything that's going on. Just those moments of pure being where there's no Stephen. And that's kind of a made up thing anyway, the identity that we hold.
Right. That's a whole other conversation, but I totally agree.
I've taken off on the stuff that's been working me lately. Anyway, Tara, yes.
No, and I love it. And to me, that is the reenchantment of the world, right? That's what's possible. We can have that reenchantment every time we do that. We get lost in the woods or by the creek or swimming in the lake or the ocean, or, gazing into the eyes of our dog or our tortoise or whoever. We can have that reenchantment of the world.
And that's well stated. Yes, I agree.
And is there anything final that you want to share with our viewers about spirit guides, animal spirit guides, power animals, this whole reenchantment of the world that we're now big fans of?
I'll try to keep it brief. I would say a good reminder of what we've discussed here, at least as a platform or a base, is to be still. To find that stillness, to open your perception broader than you might typically do, instead of getting focused on work or the computer or this or that. But every once in a while, pause, like I can look out here and see a tree and enjoy the tree. Samson comes in, wants attention, I'm doing something important, Samson, drop it for a while. It's a good reminder. It's like to do so. Let it go. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that would be my, or coming back to those words, presence and gratitude particularly. How can I be fully present with you and not be distracted in my mind, thinking, okay, when will you be done with this conversation? Blah, 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 blah. And I don't mean the interview, but a conversation, friend or your beloveds, whatever it may be. And we need faith. We need so much deep faith and not hardcore religion. We need deep faith. anyway, so that's a few things.
And to me, that deep faith comes within that stillness. If we can find that stillness inside ourselves, that's the wellspring of that deep faith as well.
I agree. And I would just add one thing is please feel free to explore the website, earthmagic.net. You can sign up for a newsletter there once a month. There's videos there. There's articles there. Tells you what I'm up to. The description of various consultations that I do. So a lot of stuff there. There's enough said. Just go check out the website.
And we have a link right here on this page. So people can just click on that link and go straight to your website, which, like you said, there's so much value and content there. And I did you have a free Oracle card reading on there. And I did that the other day, and I was really stoked with it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's a freebie, so go there. And there's apps for the Oracle cards as well. So yeah,
it's all really fantastic stuff. And I'm so glad to have you here on the summit. And I'm so glad to have you here in the world. Thanks for being you and for following your guidance.
God bless you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to do so. And thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure and my honor. And I want to thank everybody for being here with us, and just do a quick reminder that for those of you who haven't bought your All Access Pass yet, you can listen to this interview, which is rich with lots of information, and all the other interviews in the summit for the rest of your life. You get lifetime access to all of it, and the price goes up at the end of the summit. So get the best value, and if you're thinking about that, go ahead and do that now. There's a button for that here too. But let's, for right now, really focus on our gratitude and be present with Dr. Stephen Farmer and his wisdom and the wisdom of the animals that he brought forward for us today. Thank you one more time, Dr. Stephen Farmer.
Oh, you're welcome. And again, thank you for the work that you're doing too, Kara.
Thanks. All right. Bye, everybody.